Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
It's great having you both with us. If I could start with you, Mimi, we have talked many times on this program about these voting machines that don't produce paper, but actually do create an image, to functionally take a picture of your vote and store that, and how the Republicans don't seem all that enthusiastic about keeping those images. Am I boiling that down well?
You're boiling it down pretty well. It's also about paper ballot counties and states. These scanners also take those images, and as we found in 2016, nobody wants to hand recount or even hand audit, but it turns out these ballot images are very handy for auditing and recounting and accuracy. So we're zeroing in, actually, on paper ballots, because that's where most of the country is going. That's what we're correcting for the midterms.
Yeah. Paper seems solid. John Roberts Brakey, share with us your background, how you got into this, and what you're discovering as you travel around the country trying to convince folks, and tell us who you're trying to convince, that they should be keeping and using these ballot images.
Well, first off, Tom, it's a pleasure to be on your show. You're quite the character that I've been following ever since you started doing radio.
Thank you, John.
I started in this in Pima County, Tucson, Arizona, 14 years ago, and fell down the rabbit hole of election fraud and was an election integrity activist, and now I'm no longer that. I'm working towards a solution, which is transparency, because I realize there's not much integrity in the system. What we've uncovered is that about 55% of the country right now with hard copy paper ballots produce ballot images. And basically, with digital scan voting systems, there are two official ballots now. One the voter filled out, and the other the machine counted. One is hard to get to because it's the original. In some states, you can never get to them unless you can prove fraud first. And how do you prove fraud if you can't look at the ballots?
Right.
So, that's the problem.
So we have a system that has very little accountability built into it, but it has built into it the mechanisms that could be used for accountability. What happens, John, when you go into one of these communities and say, why don't you use these images for your, for audits? Even just a 5% audit, routine audit kind of thing.
They, believe it or not, Tom, make believe that they don't exist. And they have a kill switch built in after they use them to destroy, which is totally illegal. And they say that we never turned that system on, which is a lie, okay?
Wow.
This is, I've sued in Arizona, Pima County, got the whole state to accept, and we're in court in Alabama that we've already won on county court, where the judges have ruled from the bench stating that, well, here's an analogy, is that if you take voted ballots and you photocopy them and then you use the photocopies to count the vote, a judge said, what makes you think you can destroy them?
Right.
It's in the chain of custody.
Right. So,
and they're
Mimi,
really doing this all over the country.
Yeah. Mimi, I'm given John's experience, when we John, I'm gonna put you on hold for just a second here while you get control of the dog there. Mimi, one of the things that we have noticed is that, we as Americans, is that in red states, the Republican, look at Pennsylvania, they are fighting to maintain an unfair advantage through gerrymandering to the point that they're trying to, impeach their Supreme Court justices over this. Is that the same kind of, is there a partisan element to, the states or the precincts or districts in which you're getting blowback from local election officials who don't want there to be, an analysis of these images? Is this partisan?
There has been. There very much has been a partisan aspect to this, but that is changing. I'll give you an example. In Alabama, where John Brakey filed this court action the day before the special election between Doug Jones and Roy Moore, they got pushback from the Republican establishment, Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Governor. Now, Roy Moore is saying, hey, we should have saved those ballot images so that we could decide who really won. So it is becoming a transpartisan issue because all Americans are sick of having this contentious aftermath where nobody really knows what happened. The ballot images cannot be changed by fraction magic, which we discussed on your show before. Results can easily be rigged, numeric results. These ballot images are pixels, and you can't change them easily, and if you could, you'd have to match them, go into paper ballots, and change each paper ballot whose pixels you changed. So it's an easy and not very expensive way to maintain an auditable record. And we have found establishment politicians going, no, we don't want to do this, most of them Republican, but now everyone is coming on board, and that's why it's so effective. And John is going into states that have statewide digital scanners where you could audit 100% of the election, no muss, no fuss, no hand counting, no, we have to pay the staff.
That would be like Georgia, right?
Yep. This can help the midterms. This is a real deterrent to fraud in the midterms by
Remarkable.
Russians or anyone else you think is using our hackable.
Yeah, the Russians have kind of done us a favor, because before when you and I would say, I think the Republicans are hacking the voting machines because it's always red shift, there's never blue shift. And people would go, oh, the Republicans wouldn't do that. But now you say, hey, the Russians are hitting our voting machines, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's the Russians. It's wonderful.
Exactly.
So John Roberts Brakey, what people who might be watching or listening to the program right now and would like to support the work that you're doing and would also like to bring some more certainty and integrity to the election system in their state, what can they do?
Well, first off, our new site is www.auditelectionsusa.org.
Okay.
And there's a kit there. They can see what states we're going into. And if you are in these states, go to that site or send me an email, John Brakey, Brakey, @gmail, because where I'm focusing in the next 30 days is Maryland, which looks really good. They're 100%. Rhode Island is 100%. The state of Maine is 100%. I've already been in New York. They're 100% ballot images. It's the best kept secret that's been going on. I cannot believe that we could have elections, Tom, that are transparent, trackable, and publicly verified.
Now, John, maybe a technical question here, but if I go into a voting machine and the screen has been miscalibrated, accidentally or otherwise, and I push John Kerry and it says, thank you for voting for George W. Bush, as the old Simpsons routine was, doesn't that mean that the machine will then both on the vote that it's recording say, oh, it was for George Bush, and on the ballot image it'll show George Bush?
No, we're not talking those kind of machines, Tom. Those are now going to be only strictly used for the handicapped.
I see.
The whole country is going back to paper, okay? And that's where the trend is going.
So these are these pictures that are taken by the scanners?
Yep.
Yes.
I see.
So there's two kinds of scanners. You got optical and you got digital. The optical scanners is when you and me were in school, we took the
I'm familiar with it. John, we're hitting the break here. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
We're out of time, but that's but the website once again was what?
It is auditelectionsusa.org.
USA.org. Mimi Kennedy, John Roberts Brakey.
I talked about, please contact me.
Thank you both.